Today I have your check from my father. What's a little word? There's a two inyanim of kibbut aim. One kibbut aim is that simply the Torah has a chiyuv to makayim kibbut aim. So you follow the Torah and kibbut aim. You have a hilchas kibbut aim. You have there's a lot of halachas in the nafkamina, in kriya. When you do kriya, is it in avelis, and then in kriya, in kibbut. There are all kinds of halachas that are involved in kibbut aim. And you follow it. But also, the union of the seichel. The seichel is machayev kibbut aim. If not the seichel, not machayev, but we know that there are a lot of people who that on their own understand the idea that malpi seichel, that there's by seichel you see the greatness of parents, and on your own you decide there's an in kibbut aim. Just like Avinu before he got the Torah when Har Sinai, he figured out from Ramach Yevon Shesogidim that this is a chelik of understanding of the bria of kibbut aim. We have cases of the person in Ashkelon who wouldn't wake up his father in order to get the jewelry. He understood himself. There's a certain internal hergish that the person knows of kibbut aim. And this is totally in the chokhmah of understanding of understanding a human being, who the human being is, what the human being is. The Gemara in Baba Basra talks about there was an Evan Tova that was hanging on the Tzavar Amavinu, and any choila that saw it would see it and would get better, and he gave it to the Chamor. So there's a Rashbor that says, Dibra Torah b'melitza, that the kinu of Chochmah is Avonim Tevis Margolios. That what? It was totally b'tzavoro, loyma shehimshich olav b'dibur v'sichlo. What does it mean? That he taught these things to people. And with the teaching of the people of how to take care of their health and their being, he brought to the people Tachas Kanfei Ashchina. He brought people back to Judaism, understanding that taking care of the body that the Almighty gave a person, the Tzelem Elokim, not just taking care of your health, you take care of your health. So there are certain rats you take care of, and certain kalovim you take care of, animals, and your paras and animals, you take care of the human being, because it's also, I don't know, but taking care of the human being is a special thing. Taking care of a person is a special quality that you don't find in other cases. You find that Hillel left the base medrash to go to the bathhouse to go to the bathhouse, and he brings a pasuk down, and he learned that just like the Greeks or the Romans, they take and they clean their statues. Alas kamo, we have to clean our bodies as a tzelem elokim. Then if we went to the bathroom, he understood from the Goyim. They understand the godless of what a human being is, and the same thing as health. Then why the person has to take care of himself? Because the man was created in the image of Hashem. In order to live, to do the mitzvahs of Hashem, he has to take care of his body. Takes care of his body. As the Brahman says, a healthy body helps, it makes a healthy soul. A sick body can't have a healthy soul. The Shittas HaRambam. So therefore, understanding that taking care of one's body, oneself, brings people back to see the godless of Adam and be able to bring people tachas kanfei ashchina. So therefore, this was the essence of a person taking care of himself, the godless of Adam. I want to say that my father, L'Shalom, was very misspelled in the turn of the century of he went into health, how the human being In those days, they believed in the experiments that they had. This we're talking about 80 years ago and 70 years ago, how they took an egg and they kept an egg alive for 40 years. If it had the proper nutrition and the proper water and the proper excretion, they can live forever, and it turned out it had a chance of nitzchis in the body, and therefore a person should not do nothing wrong with his body, and then kal v'chomer, the body also is a soul, and they knew that the way how the person looks at his soul, or the way he is towards his soul and his healthy soul, that makes a healthy body. As a healthy body helps a soul, a healthy soul makes a healthy body. And that was the belief that they, in those days, and my father's belief, that man is a tzelem Elokim and has to be taken care of in a healthy way. And therefore the kosher laws that we had was Hashem gave it to us, and only through Hashem could it tell us how to live a proper life. Because in those days, and even today, my father held that my father half a day would study. And being the head of the Food and Drug Division, he would study half a day of all the new chemicals and new vitamins and new things and drugs come out into the market in order that what they're going to do. My father said they knew nothing, they still knew nothing about how it affects. And he gave me the famous example I always use of quinine. Quinine, if a man has malaria, he takes quinine, it saves him from malaria. But on the other hand, quinine makes the heart weaker. So the mela, you save the man from malaria, but meanwhile his heart is weaker. So how do you balance, how do you know what the vitamins and minerals and what you do, how do you know the counter effect? And science still doesn't know that. Or what vitamins go with that. No, a little bit, just a little bit they're searching. So therefore, in order for the human being to be a Tzelem Elokim, he has to follow the kosher religious laws, and the Chochmah of the Torah, which comes from God, is the way we should keep our kosher ways. And my father fought for kosher laws in the city, and he fought very hard. He wrote books about it, that it's scientific. In those days, we're talking about 70, 80, people laughed at it and made fun. Religion, what do they know about science? What about this? And people came from Europe and threw it into the garbage. And I know my father fought with his life. They put him through they tried to put him through a machine that takes meat into make hamburgers physically, and he fought with his life, and in order to make sure that they didn't. He caught them putting into kosher a sign with kosher that they're putting horse meat into it. Bad enough, not kosher, but horse meat. I mean, it sells it for, and they already put human meat into it to make kosher hamburgers and kosher frankfurters and hot dogs, whatever the company had. And Stelzach fought it. What was those days? You can't picture. My father fought with his life for kashrus and for Klal Yisrael, for helping against the Germans. I don't know if you know the stories. Most people didn't care. And the Reformed Judaism, you know the story of Rabbi Weiss, the Reformed Jews. They didn't care that the Jews, they didn't want the dirty religious Jews from Europe should come to America and make the imbalance. It's all in the books. And my father made me come to hear Rabbi Weiss and see him, how he spoke. He's a big speaker, but my father told me, I was there. He said, listen, this guy is a murderer. He doesn't care about the Jews. He only cares about himself and assimilation and living in America. And he told me, you got to care about Klal Yisrael. My father fought for Klal Yisrael, and he fought very hard that against the Germans. And before the problem came, the anti-Semitism. You have no idea of anti-Semitism in America. I myself heard on the radio all the Goyim say all kinds of things about the Jewish people, and whatever it may be. And my father fought very hard for these things, and he inspired in us very much so that we should be leaders and help Klal Yisrael in all its way positive, in all its ways, in order that we should bring. I just want to mention one thing, that in those days there were no yeshivas. My father and mother lived in Boston, and the yeshiva there didn't exist, and they tried yeshiva collapsed. He moved to New York, and he gave up his big job that he had. He brought homogenized milk from France to America. He was the big bacteriologist in a big firm, and he left it to come to New York City in order to be able to get a job in the city that he's able to keep Shabbos more or less. I spoke to my uncle at that time. I met him. I went to see him, and he's in his 80s and 90s already. He told me that my grandfather, when he came to America and he saw Chilul Shabbos, he ran back to Europe. He didn't want to be part of America. Chilul Shabbos. And then things got so bad in Europe that the mamish starving. That he came the second time. My grandfather came the second time, but there was no mamish starving in Europe. You don't know what the starving was. And he came back, but originally he came to America and he ran away. He couldn't. How can you live in America? It's mamish a place of traces. And Chilul Shabbos. My uncle told me it wasn't religious. He told me that. And that should be. So therefore. I feel I have a schus that my father taught us to be positive in many things, and I feel he has a schus to that we have a yeshiva, and he always encouraged me to either help Klal Yisrael and be positive and everything else. And I feel that is your side that we should take off a little time and give him the proper cover, that he should have a ilu nishmasa, that the work that he's doing and his children are doing, and Klal Yisrael, my sister in her way in Lubavitch, and my brother in his place in Los Angeles, my other brother and my other sister, who try to help their way, and their grandchildren, the children and grandchildren that we have, who are involved in Klal Yisrael. And I think it's a merit of them, of what they've done, and they fought assimilation with all their strength. And you know my father, I just know.
The Yeshiva Shlita tells about being maspid. The Gemara said in Broches, Daf Samach Beis Amud Aleph, a big klal, important klal about hesped. People think b'chlal today that everything you want to say from your mouth, you say. The Gemara said, if a person is maspid in his adding, he gets punished by Hashem, Hashemayim. If a person maspid and he is adding to the shvachim stuff which was not true, so machlokas b'shama b'silel in Tziyon Amud Beis, in Tziyon Amud Aleph, in Ksubes, but b'chosen kale, if you're allowed to say kala no v'chasudo or not. But by hesped, people think you can say whatever you want, on anybody. And you know, but the Levias, each one is a goy, each one is a tzaddik, each one is. But the Gemara said clearly in Broches of Samach Beis Amud Aleph, that Hashem punish people which give a hesped which is not true. So the Gemara said that he really will get punished, a person which gives a hesped and exaggerate or he will get punished from Hashem. And the Gemara even said a story. So the person once by hesped he said about somebody he was tzonua. So one of the Choshev Amoraim asked him, how could you say he was tzonua? Have you been with him together in Beis HaKisa? You know how is it tzonua bar choisav? That the Gemara said. How do you know what he just appeared klape chutz? That he said tzonua bar choisav. Did you go with him in Beis HaKisa? So this Gemara teaching us to be very reluctant before we saying something by hesped, especially if you don't know the person. But in this case, for some is ein tzrichim raya. They say behind every Adam Gadol there is Choshev, a wife which pushes him. But in this case, if he had children, Gedolei Torah, so this is himself, without knowing, I'm not afraid to say that Beloi Sofek, he was very big Adam Amayle if he had such children. Not Beloi Sofek. Especially I hear about the Mesirus Nefesh, that I remember it was a story, that they came to Rabbi Suzalman Meltzer, a person came to Rabbi Suzalman Meltzer. I heard it from my Rabbi. I didn't remember the story himself. I heard it from my Rabbi in Yeshiva Ktane. The person came to Rabbi Suzalman Meltzer, and he said something that everybody else, the only Yerushalayim Chaver and Eitz Chaim laughed. But if we know the Metzias, there's no laughter b'chlal. He said, Rabbi, you know what kind of a man I am? I am 40 years in America, and I am still keeping Shabbos. So all the Israelis laughed. Keeping Shabbos? If you told me about the Chumrah, I understand. Keeping Shabbos. But if you know the history in America, what happened in the beginning of the century, yes. It was such a nisoyan, a person didn't know what to eat. If you left the job Friday, didn't come Shabbos, you don't come Shabbos, don't come Monday. So the nisoyan was mamish unbelievable. In such a door, such a Metzias, to fight against everybody, to fight for kashrus, to fight to have children, b'nei Torah, this is himself the biggest shvach. If it was also the son like the Rosh Yeshiva, which really influenced a lot of hundreds of thousands of people, so no doubt of it, without knowing him, it's impossible that it was not Odom HaMayle. So I hope people will learn from him, not not just to be masbi to say words and to forget. To learn from him, Taki, this Mesiras Nefesh, doing for Klal Yisrael Achrayus, not only for himself, to be involved for Klal Yisrael, and this will be the biggest aliyah to his neshama.